Hi, my name is Sheila Karuna. Welcome to New Light Streaming Love and Sassy Seer Sheila, as this will be seen on both channels. Where I'm joined today again by my New Light Streaming Love team member, Krystle Hemphill. Thanks for coming and having this chat with me. We
Yeah,
sort of
for
were,
sure.
we sort of were talking a little bit off camera, so I'd love for us to just sort of pick it up from there. Um,
Yeah, like we
I
always do.
I need to just start hitting record and not even worry about it. An intro of any kind. It was the only reason I do it that way is because I've been guided not to edit, and I don't know how to edit anyway, so it always works out. But so I named this one, I think, what did I say exactly? I called it Stuck on the Precipice, the Void. How can I truly step off into the unknown? Because
Mm, that's deep.
you've really been looking into the void and going there. And I love your latest video about it. I don't know why, but I'm keeping hearing myself echo over on your end. Is that coming through to you? Can you hear it too?
No.
Okay, good. I hope it doesn't come through the recording. Um, so I love what you've been doing lately, and because I've talked to you about it, that I do. I feel sort of stuck in some ways. Um,
Yeah, I'm kind of at the same spot, but I've recognized it as like that threshold, or that in between space. That's what I've started to recognize it as. I don't
yeah,
feel like I'm deep in there. It just, it's kind of a feeling like the moment before you go like under. Think of like I'm envisioning like underwater. Like, it's almost like stabilize yourself, balance yourself, take a deep breath, let's go. And that's kind of how it feels.
ah,
Um, and sometimes I get to feel like being stuck or like walking through mud and not really getting anywhere. And for me, this moment always feels like a cluster in my head. Like I have all these ideas and things that I want to start taking action on. And I've got this and this and this and this. And it's like, you know, it kind of comes down to a moment of like a pause. Hold on a minute. Um, yeah, and it just feels like standing at a threshold. And this is where I've usually been taking that moment to go into the void. Not only do you get to sit with yourself in that stillness and kind of figure out where you want to go from here so it unclutters the mind, but there's also other things, the recoding and the repatterning of what you want to experience. So,
right. And you've been doing a lot of videos about that too. I really,
yeah.
and I'm going to link, because those who are subscribed on Sassy C or Sheila, are not getting notifications. If you're not subscribed to New Light Streaming Love and to Sassy Seer Sheila, I highly recommend that you are subscribed in both places, because there will be things that appear on either one of these channels that you might not get on the other channel. And the things that Krystle is doing is one of those things. So if you're subscribed to Sassy Seer Sheila and not to New Light Streaming Love, then definitely go over and subscribe there. And I will make sure there's a link to the videos that we're speaking on that Krystle's been doing, because boy, I just, those have been fabulous. It's like a whole new version actually of you since your last surgery. It's very interesting to
I
me.
don't know. I look at that different too. I don't think it's a whole new version of me at all. I feel like we were talking about understandable, being understood. And that's, I don't know, once you connect all of the dots, there's just a settling type of feel within. So I don't feel like it's a new version of me more than just
It's an
a
expanded you.
complete a complete type of feel. Even though I'm experimenting with the void and God consciousness and things like that, there's still a unity type of feel within me. And it's almost like it's restored balance within my body, within my emotional body. It's just a whole different feel. So,
Well, see, that's
not a
why.
different
Okay, so
version rather than whole me,
right
all
from
of
my
me.
perspective, it feels like a whole new you
Yeah.
because of the you that I've experienced before. Right. So as you were speaking there, I see you now as a more, well, we were talking about it, like you said, off camera,
Hmm.
a more evolved,
Yeah.
more an
Yeah. Let's
expanded.
let's recap that because I feel like it's important. We were talking about source or consciousness itself, and I had mentioned one memory that had stuck with me where I was doing a recording with you and someone else, and I had made this statement that I've always understood, like since I was a kid, that people just want to be understood. And that little moment has always stuck with me. And I was talking about how I understand that differently now, not only within myself, but with this whole, God frequency, source energy, divinity, the connection with that. Um, it's like a mirror to consciousness itself. And you're kind of like, well, how is that? And we mirror that God frequency, and it wanting to understand itself and wanting to be understood is exactly how we feel when we sit across from someone else, wanting them to understand us. And you had a really good point that is true too. It's like a layer of truth around that.
Right. Because
If you want to share that.
I well, because, and I told you, and I meant this, that when we had that conversation, I, it's like for a time, I started to notice within myself that that desire to be understood by another human being, right? Because that's what and that's what most folks are going to equate this to, right? To being understood by loved ones, parents, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, right? And because of those conversations, I kind of started seeing where, especially because of my thoughts and feelings in regards to languaging, how everyone sees things from their own very specific perspective, I'd come to the conclusion that, well, if that's really what you're looking for, you might as well give that up because that's the only person, the only being that has been with me my entire 63 years is that larger portion of me. My higher self, my spirit, my soul, whatever you want to call it, has been here since I arrived and is the only one that could truly understand. And now I feel to say understand where I'm coming from, what I mean when I say this, that, or the other, right? And you actually rightfully so, you said to me, well, that does have a layer of truth to it because that is a just a true statement that I mean, we've even seen amongst ourselves here, within the New Light team that languaging is different for each being. There's no way around that. Knowing that that's true and taking that into consideration when having conversations with each other, oh my God, that's been the most helpful thing to me ever. Because then I can say, wait a minute, wait. I think I heard you say this. Is this what you meant? Because this is how I am understanding what it is that you're saying. But you went a bit deeper. That's when you brought forward what you were saying about source or God frequency. And I would love it if you could talk a
So,
bit about that.
yeah, so basically I was talking about how yeah, no one out here is going to be able to understand where you're coming from, your perspective. They haven't been in your shoes. Um, However, there is the all or the oneness that has been with you, that you are a part of and it a part of you. So it understands. And that's all that really matters when it comes down to it. Like that's the root of that desire, that longing to be understood in a way that captures that God frequency, that relatability of oneness and how we evolve with that.
And I think if I understood you properly, when we got to that point, because I feel much more settled within myself in regards to being understood. Um, and I thought I had come to the conclusion that part of that was my thoughts on the subject, that it would be impossible for somebody out there to really truly understand me, and that I had just settled, myself around that. But you actually brought up, because that frequency, that God frequency, the whole point of what we're doing here is that frequency getting to know itself, that's the impetus for evolution
Mhm.
of the consciousness.
Yeah,
And the way you brought that forward, that in and of itself, oh, see, that's a much uh, better understanding for me to come to about why I feel more settled,
right,
and not so um, feeling like nobody understands me,
right,
because I understand me a lot better now, which would seem to be a direct reflection of what you spoke on. I'm
yeah.
not saying
I
I
think you're
understand.
talking about I think you're talking about where I was talking about source in itself wanting to know itself, hence the fragmentation. It was like a sacred curiosity is what I've learned by being in the void. Um, to evolve was the biggest. I'm like, that was so stupid. Like, why would you fragment consciousness to experience itself in life, yada yada yada? Like, that is so stupid when you already knew oneness. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's grander than that? What's better than that? I just couldn't understand it. And I was like, oh, to evolve. Like, that's been my quest through my whole life. That's why all the questions, why? That's why, I dig deep into myself. That's why I learn, 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 learn. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to evolve. And it's a direct mirror of source.
Right. Well, see, we've been sold this bill of goods that, because of the omnipotence, the omniscience, the all of those things, for what you, like you said, it's kind of stupid. You want to, you right? Well, wait a minute. No, it's not. Source wants to grow too,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
I mean, and
That's
that,
that's one of the biggest reasons the first time I sank into that space, into that stillness, into that void, I wound up asking God frequency, what do you want to experience through me? What's going to help you in your terms to evolve? You know what I'm saying? Which is
right,
me ultimately.
right, exactly. No, but I see. That's just it. I love what is coming through you, what is being expressed through you, in this series of videos that you've been doing. You know your most recent uh, adventures into the void.
Yeah.
Because I just I that is why I guess it felt like a different you, because that is what I'm sensing, right? Is the more expansive, because as you grow, you're taking me along with you, right?
Hmm.
I get to experience that as well.
You know what? I think that's what ultimately the whole concept of ascension is. When one person grows, expands, evolves, and shares that resource with someone else, then that person, and then, oh my gosh, that person, oh my gosh, that person. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, I
and it's the
do.
same. It's the same no matter what path you follow, no matter what teachings you live by. Like, ultimately, if you can look past the some of the absurdity with some particular religions, and you can actually get to the truth of it, then it has and holds the same exact message if
Exactly.
you're willing to open the mind and the heart to actually see the truth in those words. It's no different, and that also is an ascension on, in a different way, but ultimately it's all of us working together for that.
Exactly.
So I think that's what really, really, like when people talk about ascension, or even like I've heard terms thrown around like ascending to 5D, and things like that's highly popular. It really all boils down to that one truth. My truth is more termed spiraling back to God consciousness, back to oneness, back to unity. Another way that I envision it is like in Kabbalistic terms, like climbing the ladder through the Sephiroth back to Insof, back to oneness, back to God consciousness. And that's what it feels like. And that's what it's always felt like for me, is that everything that I learned, every aspect in the way that I grow, every way that I evolve is like a step up the ladder, like, a growth spurt for myself.
Right.
And ultimately, that's going to lead to that higher consciousness, to that God divinity, to that God frequency. That's what I feel.
And see,
We were also talking about the two paths too, and how a
yes, we
lot of
were.
us, especially in the spiritual community, we talk about a lot about we're here to assist others. Like for many of us, we have this deep, 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 deep desire. Can't really explain it, to be in service to others, and there's different forms and fashions in which people are going to do that. Some people are out here raising funds and monies to help homeless people. Some people are out here talking about, spirituality and how to work with your energy centers. Others are reading books of knowledge. There's so many different avenues and ways that people are going to do that. But ultimately, like, that is a path in itself. And that deep desire to help others is to understand that God frequency and to ultimately ascend in, you know,
Right.
that term.
Well, I know for a long time I've heard the terminology used exactly the way you just talked about, back to God frequency. And I've done a lot of thinking about that and feeling into that for myself, because I and it could be that it's just where I am in the moment, right? And I allow for that, because every single time I hear that, um, the whole idea, it seems to me, by the God frequency fragmenting itself to get to know itself, is that to go beyond what that is. We don't have a clue as to exactly what that is.
No.
But for me, I keep thinking about it, and what I keep being shown is that, yes, that while that is so, uh, to understand that unity, I keep being shown it is to understand that unity and go beyond that, even so. Like we've done the unity thing, or I should say, God frequency has done the unity thing. That's where we came from in that terminology, those sparks, that fragmentation of the one sparking off into these experiential filters that we inhabit now. And I keep being shown that the, and maybe this is just the path that I feel like I'm on, but it is to, and now for something completely different, is to be in the know of that oneness and that separateness at the same time and not feel the, I don't know, the absolute, because it feels to me as though there's always been this I want to, okay, it's not negativity, but and it's, and the word shaming comes to mind, but that's not even it either. This idea that that's a blasphemous thought, that to be oneness and singular all at the same time. And I keep thinking about how wonderful it will be as we realize the truth of that. And I keep being shown instances of it all the time. Like we, in part of our conversation this morning, I was alluding to a particular person in our conversation. You knew exactly who it was. I didn't even have to say anything. I didn't say a sex. I didn't say, this is the kind of connection that we haven't allowed ourselves to realize that we already have. And it just keeps getting more prevalent, at least to me, because I keep seeing I twice today, I felt you thinking about me or at wondering what's happening next. And I went to the private message thing and I saw the little dots dancing, which tells me you're in there typing. And I was
Mhm.
like, yes, see, that's the ultimate in that unity being realized in my separateness all at the same time. And I kind of feel as though, for me, at least right now, whether or not that's actually going to take place or not, I feel like that's the next fun discovery to really flesh out. And at least for me, and I don't even know that, but stepping off into any of that um, has been sort of scary to what, and also how do, because that was what we were speaking on, or what I named it here. I kind of feel like that's the why of it, is because, again, it's the evolution of consciousness, the God consciousness as a whole, because each one of us that holds ourselves and comes to an understanding about ourselves grows the whole regardless, right? Whether we think we are serving or not, it's serving. So what are your thoughts about that? Do you, like, is there a, I don't know, that I know you said you were stuck as well. So
Not really stuck. It's just the exterior. It almost always feels like standing in the middle of a vortex. So you're seeing life move, but you're just there. I wouldn't, well,
so
I wouldn't
maybe
speak
like
that
a
out loud
holding
for
pattern.
myself. Yeah, kind of like, It's almost like that moment before the descent into oneself is what I mean by that.
I
Not the
gotcha.
descent into hell, not going into the underworld. Although, I mean, we could use that as symbology,
Well,
but
yeah,
it's that moment before I go back in here, because when I speak of God frequency and God consciousness, the difference you're seeing in me is my realization that it's in here. I might use my hands and say, oh, the swirls, the patterns, God consciousness, because that's a way to bring it into the mind's forefront. But if you really want to embody this truth, let it resonate within, let it sit inside of you, sense and feel that within you. And that is exactly what I do when I go into that space. And when I'm there, you are in kind of this threshold. You're gonna have choices to make of how you're going to experience things. That's when we really go into the conversations about, a lot of people will say creating your reality. And when I hear people say that, I get what they're saying. Like that's a languaging thing, but I've never really embodied that. And I've never really like agreed with it in a sense. It has always felt like a co-creation to me, because there's an understanding inside of me that there is something, in this universe. I mean, how are we going to say we all create everything? And I mean, everything in our lives down to the last little notch of suffering, that we create all of that, and it's all our own doings. But we also talk about, and you'll see this in the spiritual community, we also talk about and hold all these universal laws and all these truths. Well, if that's the case, like how does that come into play with we're the only person that creates our own reality? You have all these different teachings that we talk about, we understand them, and we use them when we're talking about manifestation and things like that. However, I don't feel like it's our creating of reality in a way that we think about, because then when someone, you know, walks outside and, something happens, they're like, oh, I created that. I do think there's such thing as fate. I do think there's such thing as universal law. The pendulum swings. There's a balance to things. I do think that and maybe fate isn't the right word. Maybe destiny itself isn't the right word, but I do feel like there's other things that weave in with this. Um, but I do think that it's a co-creation to where we can bend our reality. We can bend the way that we experience something. We can bend the spiral, so to speak. We can recode it and repattern it to create our experience within the reality. That's how I'm seeing it now.
right.
And that to me has made all the difference.
Well, in many ways, I feel as though what you're speaking on there, I get, because I have said that I create my own reality. I've said that myself, and
Yeah.
I feel what you're saying. I do. I feel what you're saying, and I feel as though that is correct, because there are energies at play that I don't quite really truly understand as yet. In other words, I keep being shown by my larger self that is what divine timing is actually about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there
That would go
is,
into that category of fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it. It
right,
could be constellation energies. There's something universal
right,
that has a stance in this too. So the phrase "we create our own reality" is just, it's never resonated with, but I know what people mean by it.
right. And I'll tell you what, I just now I was shown what now I think a better way for me to express that, because I was asking, well, what is it that I mean when I say that? What show me a better way to, because of the way I speak, right? The way the frequency that I hold. these are all of those sorts of things go into that co-creation. And I am the only one that has anything to do with that. And
Yes.
it's also a frequency, a frequential match or not. And
Right.
that has everything to do with that co-creation as well, right?
Yep.
So I
Yep.
like the way you
I
put
agree.
that. Yeah, I like the way you put that. So it is actually both. And see, that's what I keep coming back to. I keep being shown. We have been, or I'll just keep it right here. I have been my entire life told that, it's either true or it's false. It cannot be true and true. That's not how it works. But no, yes, it can. And
Yep.
most often is, it depends upon your, oh, okay. It depends upon your perspective and your perception of your perspective. Because both of those things are also true. The not just the perspective, but the perception that I'm holding of my perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to be that frequency alignment, you know?
Exactly.
Like it'd be similar to me going into the void saying, hey, let's co-create something. This kind of how I want to feel. This is what I want to experience. These are things that I want to do. And then, hey, God frequency, what you got? What you wanna experience? How are we gonna evolve together? Let's do this thing. And then we come to these agreements and we're recoding and repatterning, and then I come up out of that and I'm just like collide into something totally different. Like, what kind of distortions and chaos is that going to cause?
No, exactly.
So if it's the same as like just someone that's teaching affirmations. How you gonna get in the mirror and say, I'm rich, I'm beautiful, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, but when you go out here and walk in the world, you're not operating in that frequency. You don't got your head held high and acting like you got money in the bag. Like you're not following that frequency. So how is it going to take off and begin to gain that momentum? How is that spiral be going to start turning for you? Not in your favor. You're going to
Right.
sit here in one spot. Oh, I thought we was doing this. Nah, we ain't going nowhere. That's that's kind of how it feels.
Right. No, you're so right. And that is something that I quite often, and it's more habit than anything else.
Yeah, I was going to say, I will say this because don't get me wrong. Way back in the day, I used affirmations and literally would stand in front of the mirror and say certain things. And that to me can be a highly powerful technique. Does it take practice? Yes. Don't expect to say an affirmation and then all of a sudden, ooh, I'm aligned to that frequency. I don't think that way, that technique is how that works. I think that as you stand in the mirror, and let's just say that you're trying to work on your self esteem, and you're standing in the mirror and you're saying, girl, I love those eyes. Oh, your face is so smooth. I love your hair. You're so beautiful. I love you so much.
Oh man. Okay, so I don't know
To
who's
stand in the
stuck.
mirror and say those things, and they're going to get a,
Can you repeat that? Because, yeah, repeat what you just said.
okay, I don't know where it went out at. So I'm talking about the technique, and I don't feel like that just hops you right into alignment, that it is a good and powerful technique that can be practiced. However, it's ultimately reprogramming your mind, which is going to get you in that frequency. And I was saying how me, for example, I can sit here and say, I can stand in the mirror and I can be like, oh, I love your eyes. They're so beautiful. Your skin is so soft. I love your curls. I love you so much. And I literally got cold chills because I have embodied that. I believe that. But someone else that may have self esteem issues, they could stand in front of that mirror and say those things, and there's going to be a distortion within their body. They're going to feel That's not true. So when they walk off and walk out into the world, oh my gosh, they're looking at me. They think I'm hideous. They just, they don't like me or whatever, whatever. Like, but if you use that tool, which it can again be a powerful tool, you got to put that into practice. But ultimately, it will. It'll begin to reprogram your thoughts about whatever it is that you're using it for. It could be, you know, for abundance, or I'm the most creative being in the world, whatever it's going to be for you. Um, and you can also relate that to the void and the spiral and God consciousness, because as you're taking that moment to stand in the mirror and do those things, you are literally getting yourself into that stillness point, to that belief, to that co-creation, and you're in practice of reweaving a new experience for yourself. So it's totally relatable to what we're talking about anyways. And you can also do that by journaling or whatever avenue you choose to do. My way is I go outside and I sit with all the elements around me and I sink into myself. I go within. I know we hear that all the time. That's literally what I'm doing. And I'm in that space. And you can feel the palpable energy. You can feel the hum of God frequency itself. Maybe when you continue to practice it in the mirror, you'll start hearing that. I don't know. But you can take what I'm teaching in all kind of different forms. You could
Right.
pick up the tarot cards and do a reading for yourself. Okay, let's get into alignment. What do I need to know? What do I want? Where do I go from here? You're beginning a new pattern. So it's in every single moment of every single second of every single day that we're in that space if we open up to it and allow it.
Right. And the key thing for me has been to realize that almost everything I've ever been taught was in some way either wrong or had some sort of programming attached to it of that has the less than or whatever attached to it, right? And so coming to realize that programming that I received, and like I said, there's no one on this planet escaped that. Everybody has all kinds of programming of all kinds of sorts of ways that will be unique to each, that then also become habit. Even once you see it, then it's a habit that or at least this is the way it has worked for me, that now needs to be broken.
Mm.
And so I like that what you were saying about the affirmations, because I feel like that is an easy step to
Yeah.
even if you've ever done just exactly what you said, Krystle. If anybody's ever done that and had that immediate thought that it wasn't true or whatever, that is the ego part that is trying to reassert itself, and that's also attached to the programming.
Yeah.
And
And
I
that's another thing too. I think we've talked about this before in the past, how people say like kill off the ego or separate from the ego. And I've never thought that either. I think that we can
same.
tame or quiet the ego, but it's a part of you. And why would we want to detach from all parts of us? That's not going to make us whole, you
Yeah,
know?
I agree.
So
I agree with that, because I always had problem with that. The ego is actually the it is the most programmed part of me, no doubt. I recognize that, and getting my ego to accept the shotgun seat and allow the larger, more expansive part of me to be the driver of the vehicle, while
yeah,
the ego takes, because it is part of my personality, and it is that which has grown up with this vehicle. And I never, it never sat right with me in the spiritual community. Everybody saying you got to kill the ego, kill the ego. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah. I
If
think that the ego kind of is like it wants to protect and it also wants certainty. And
right,
many times, like, if we're trying to grow and evolve or even reprogram the mind, like, there is no certainty in that. But when you align, like, God frequency wants surrender. That's how it operates, is in surrender. So the ego, if you can quiet the need or want for certainty or expectations and things like that, that's part of ego as well.
right,
Um, and align with that surrender, then yeah, we might get somewhere.
right. No, you're so right. You're so right because that word surrender was one of the hardest things that I had to hear. And I know now, I didn't realize it at the time, but I know now that you see, the ego is the part of me that has been beaten up, belittled, trampled, all the things that happen during programming and conditioning, that happens during childhood traumas, abuses, those sorts of things. And the ego is, in effect, the protector of the vessel, is what I keep being shown. And
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why it does reassert itself all the time, because it's a part of the protector of the vehicle. And
yep.
so working with my ego instead of telling I'm going to kill it. Because what's the first thing you hear when and especially like for somebody that's been abused, that word surrender, oh, hell to the nah, nah, nah. We ain't
Mhm.
doing that. I've been down that road. I know what that looks like. No,
Yeah.
right?
I,
So,
I just I just had a thought come in about the ego and wanting certainty, and then the soul longs for, desires the unknown. And so there has to be, well, because the soul, it almost, what would be a good way to put that? Like, I feel like the soul is the remembrance of the connection to God frequency. So it channels or has that connection to that ultimate desire to evolve. And there's a knowing, there's a remembrance there of, and able to do that. Like, there has to be leap faith, there has to be walking into the unknown, even if we're walking into ourselves, walking into the unknown. And there has to be a great deal of surrender even with that. So ego wants to know, wants to protect, wants the certainty. The soul, though, wants the surrender. The soul wants that connection to the unknown, wants to grow. And the only way to do that is to surrender to the unknown.
when you were speaking earlier about how you, sit in the backyard and sink into yourself, when you're
Mm-hmm.
going into the void, I was flashed in my mind's eye the experiences I started having when in 2017, uh, and I used the term standing on the edge of forever. And it translated from that feeling that I was having in waking moments to also as I was beginning to meditate more and more and more. I started seeing what I now would call a portal, but it was this huge, and now I recognize it also from we're speaking and why it came in that way. That as I would sink into myself, at first in my mind's eye, I would see that portal and I would be feeling as though I'm being pulled in, but not out of me, but into me. So it was I was sinking in through that
Yeah.
meditation. Yeah. And then, of course, when you did my BQH session, my first BQH,
Hmm.
remember I saw the big eye there,
Yeah.
uh, like in the center of that portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
And
even the one where you were in that fluid energy, and I was like, well, what are you doing? Just being. I've had a lot of people experience stuff like that. So, it's there.
right.
Like,
And
there's no denying that.
that's a huge, that kind of the only way into that now I realize uh was surrender. You can't be
Hmm.
rigid and go into that because it won't happen.
Yep.
I didn't, and I wasn't holding it that way. I was still, I, I, back then when I first was doing that, I never even equated that to the fact that there was a part of me that was surrendering to that.
Mm.
Must have been a workaround that I figured out or something because to keep the ego from freaking out and tensing up.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, and I don't know how many, I'd love to hear other folks chime in on this in the comments, or if you don't feel comfortable there, reach out through the emails, either New Light Streaming Love at Gmail or Conscious Conversation Central at Gmail. Um, what that is for you and how you experience that. And it will be absolutely different for each, but I would love to hear from folks about their experiences with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do recognize it would be very different for each. But because of these experiences, I now see myself and all of us in such a much more multidimensional manner. So much so that there are, uh, there's different levels and parts of me that I can, yes, it is all one, but it is also very separate and different all at the same time because it is a part of me, the overall me, but it is also, separate. I don't know why, but I can see it as that. It's more like what I'm being shown right now is more like a layering.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's because we are still separate. And that's really the only way that our mind can comprehend the oneness in itself, you know, that individuality. But I think there's a difference between like individuality and like individuation to where you understand and embody oneness.
Right. As Krystle. Is that what you
Hmm.
yes, embodying oneness
Well, I mean, I
as
guess I could walk around and call myself source. I could do that.
well, because in effect you are as just as every bit as much as I am. But
But
having
how's that gonna help in certain situations? Like, okay, so individuality or separateness is going to be like, oh, I feel good. I'm going about my day. Da, da, da. Why is this person acting like that? We get to observe in that sense separateness. I think a a way of operating from oneness is being able to shift your perspective even on small things like that. Like something as simple as maybe this person has had a really tough day. Let me see what I can do to help them. That's evolution. That's growth. That's growth of your character. That's growth of your strength. That's growth of your, you know. And that's operating in a oneness frequency too, I feel like, even in the smallest of ways. Of course, there can be grander experiences to where you can really shift something, but yeah, but our
Well,
minds
yeah,
ultimately go to that person is doing this.
right. I
But
understand.
I've noticed a lot since I've been encountering and connecting with this God frequency. I've noticed a lot of instances to where I will be like, oh, hmm, you know, maybe, and I'll begin to shift what I'm actually observing as someone not separate from me, but ultimately we are one. So how it kind of goes back to a regular teaching that we teach our kids. Treat people how you want to be treated. Why would we teach that anyways?
No, you're so right.
Because that person is a fragment of you. So if you don't want it done to you, then you best not be doing it to them. You
Exactly.
know.
I'm going to pull forward my experience that we talked about the other night when we did our live. That experience with the gal on Facebook Marketplace. That was exactly what you're speaking on, I feel like. And I was just flashed that whole
Yep.
experience while you're speaking on that. There's, she, I think, felt me as her, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that goes a long way, just what you were saying there. To if we can all realize that that other being is just and I know I've said, we've all said this, a lot of people in the spiritual community say this, but they don't act it out, and a lot of times nobody does, but
Yep.
I love what you said there, realizing that the being in front of you is just another iteration of you that has lived a different amount of time in the vessel that they're in, that has had a completely different experience than I've had. And right now, that other iteration of me is having a damn hard day. Then it would absolutely behoove me to see what I could do to ease that burden.
Yeah.
Because it's not that I'm doing something for them. No, I'm doing something for me, another iteration of me that's having a hard time. And I mean, I honestly, if we all sort of looked at it like that, I'm sorry, I just feel like everything would be so different. And I think that is, at least that's the way I feel that we are moving. Now, how long that is all going to take before every portion of us gets that message, I don't think it's going to be very long, because the more beings who actually can start to get that message and really feel it for themselves, it happens exponentially because we really are all one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Love what you said there about that. And so many people are just so concerned about uh, the crap day they're having
Yep.
that, but I don't know. That is just it. I have seen that for myself if I'm out in public and somebody's really having a hard day. If I recognize that and uh, do what I can to mitigate it changes everything. That
Yeah.
person's frequency shifts, their whole day
Yep.
changes. It also has an effect on all those, and because most of the time this has happened in public, all those around them, that
Yep.
sort of thing. So I love what you said there. So I think I heard you say in your last video that you you think you were going to work on a meditation
I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I pulled out my BQH book, and I wanted to try to do that too, because I feel as though you know, I mean, your meditations that because remember you did a couple for me personally.
Hmm.
You are definitely a translator for me, and I know that I am for others as well. So I would love to maybe collaborate on something together
Okay.
that we
Yeah.
could do. And then we could even, house that on both channels where folks could get at it if that was something that they would be interested in giving a try for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. So do you have anything else you want to chat about with that, with where we were on that, or?
Um, Not really. Did we like did we even cover the topic?
I don't know.
What
Didn't
was
we?
the title?
The title, Stuck on the Precipice, the Void. How can I truly step off into the unknown? Now,
Oh yeah.
when I
Yeah,
first
we
told you, I feel like we did, but maybe we didn't, because
yeah.
honestly, okay, so when you were talking about the co-creating, right? For me, I've come to see that now as the unknown. And because of the way we've all been programmed and conditioned, where we are conditioned to want that certainty that you talked about. That's
Oh.
almost everybody is conditioned to want that. And the unknown is rather scary, because that's why
Hmm.
everybody's so damn afraid of death. Right.
Yeah.
And being 63 now and not in all that great a health, I've actually, over the last several years, been asked to contemplate my own death. And really, what is so scary about it is just another transition. If I truly believe what it is I say, then, and honestly, I'm not afraid. I realized that some time ago. I don't know. I think it was at some point. Well, you can't have over 20 surgeries and not at some
My
point.
my question would be like, why do we equate the unknown with death in itself? Like that's where my brain automatically went to. Like, why is that even an equate? Like it's almost like anytime we bring up unknown, not just me and you, I'm just talking about in general. Anytime the conversation of the unknown is open, it always leads to the term or the thoughts of death. Like, why do we do that? Why do we put those two and two together, anyways? Let me
Sure,
see.
go right
Turn
ahead.
on the
Sure. While you're doing that, I'll see if I can answer it for you. For me, I I think it's because there's not really an answer for what death is. And I equate it to the unknown, which is not necessarily something I want to be afraid of, neither one of those things. So I don't know. No, there are folks who have died and have come back and told the tale. Some are very similar to each other, but not all of them. And in fact, life is quite unknown if we would really look at it. In my view, it is, because we don't know the truth of who we are or why we're here. And that's the whole point in asking those questions to begin with. So for me, it's all rather unknown. I mean, even in science, they claim that they've, figured out this and that and the other. But unless I've done it for myself, then it is still unknown. So I don't know what the answer is to that, but that's why I usually equate it like that because there's fear involved in both of those, maybe. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I don't know either. It pops into my head like, why is that an automatic for most people to jump from the unknown into the topic of death? Even in circumstances where like they might be Christian and they know within their heart and soul that they're going to heaven when they pass into the afterlife, like why did they still equate the unknown with death when there's a faith or a knowing within them, you know?
Well, all I
So,
could
and
do
then
would be,
it led me back to what I was talking about of the soul craving or desiring the unknown because that's how we're going to evolve. But if you really take a look at the concept of death in itself, I've never been one, even when I was younger, I've never been one to fear the concept of death. Maybe like how it's going to happen. If you start thinking on that, that can be a little scary, but like the part where, the shift into, um, I guess what I would term like beyond the veil. That's never been scary to me, like not in the slightest. But if you really think about the concept or the word death, think about the death card in tarot. We don't associate that. If we pull that card for somebody, we're not going to be like, you're going into the abyss. You're going to be thrown into the unknown. You're going to die. You know what I'm saying? We don't equate it to that. We talk about rebirth and transformation. If the soul is craving and magnetized to the unknown, it wants that in order to thrive, in order to expand, in order to evolve, then maybe even unconsciously we equate it to death because there's a realization that death is not an end, but it is a transition, a transformation, and a rebirth. So maybe that's why we put
it
those two
could,
and two together.
yeah, it could be. You might be exactly right about that. I personally, I feel like the programming and conditioning in regards to the unknown and or death, let's just say both of them actually. The programming and conditioning that, and it's different for everyone, like you said. Now, you see, my great grandmother, she was one of those Christians. I feel that the words coming out of her mouth was that, she was saved and she was going to heaven. But I think she had some heavy duty fear. She did not want to die. She actually told me she wanted to be kept alive by machines as long as possible.
Well, yeah, you know why I feel like is because, and I've experienced this here recently. Um, the whole concept around that, the absurdity that I was talking about earlier, it's really pumped into the system that if you sin or do anything wrong, then you're going to hell.
Which is part of that
So
programming and conditioning that I was talking about.
even someone who has a knowing that the possibility of heaven exists, there's still a heaviness that lives inside of them of whether they're a good person or not, whether they've done good things, whether they deserve and are worthy of going to heaven. I noticed this with Quinley the other day. She actually attended a like vacation Bible school thing. Um, and I thought they were just going to be like playing and stuff, but out of nowhere, she all of a sudden started having nightmares about death and losing me in death was one of the things she was very upset about. And we had a whole conversation about death. Babe, death is, it's a part of this life in this realm. Like there is nothing to fear about it. It's not an end. Um, you know, I will see you again, whatever, whatever. Like we don't have to fear that.
Right.
And to top it off, don't you think that I ain't gonna be flipping some lights on and off around you to let you know I'm here? You know,
That's right.
so I mean, even within just a couple of days of even being in the environment of that, someone who's never been programmed with the concept of if you do this or if you do that, um, just a few days of being in the environment, all of a sudden had fears about what's going to happen to her, what's going to happen to me after death. It's not an ending. So,
Right. Right. Yeah, and it really doesn't take much, I don't think, especially if you're
no,
immersed in others' fields, right? I mean, she was there, and that that is
yeah. And the way
everyone.
she picks up energy too. Oh my goodness.
It was
Yeah.
permeating the whole of where she was, right? And for me,
Yeah.
I see that as a very well, and see that's why again for me, um, of course, this is a whole other conversation, but I'm so glad for you that you're doing homeschooling because I see now. I didn't see it, unfortunately, when my child was going to school, but being immersed in all of that in that way, of course, is why I say that everyone, regardless of exactly how you were programmed, and it's different for everybody, everybody has been programmed and
Oh yeah.
conditioned in
Yeah.
differing ways.
Yeah. I mean, like, okay, take it for another example. Like, she might get older and say that, she was programmed to believe in reincarnation, because we have a little conversation. Like, we was just talking this morning about, she was like, Mom, how about next lifetime we come back as dogs? And I was like, I don't know about that. Cause I mean, like, some people don't treat dogs very kindly. And I was like, if I'm gonna come back as an animal, I'm gonna come back as a bird so I can be free and fly away. And she's like, I don't really know about being a bird. We was actually having a conversation about reincarnation.
Right,
She might get older and be like, my mom programmed me to believe in reincarnation. She might be a diehard Christian, or she might be a diehard Buddhist, or whatever her choosing.
right,
So I mean, ultimately, I feel like yes, everybody has programming, but it's going to be about what path you're on to decipher what that programming is for you and what you're going to align to where you are in the moment, you
right.
know?
Well, see, that's why I say for me, I've come to see and feel, and I ultimately, eventually, I will be shown the truth of it, perhaps during the transition from this realm to the next. But
Yeah.
I can't, at this moment, my thoughts and feelings are that I chose the particular parent that I was to be born to. I've got so many puzzle pieces that would seem to suggest that this is how this works. And knowing that programming and conditioning is a part of coming into this realm because of that veil of forgetting, right, that we all go through. The ones that are coming in now aren't, I have a feeling either the veil is thinning and they're not as forgetful or something, because it feels to me like the ones, oh, I would say probably since around 2006, 2007, maybe. So I've heard people say that as late as 2012. These beings are not as easily programmed. Oh, they will and are being programmed because nobody escapes it, but not as deeply and not as completely, I don't think.
Well, yeah. What if it has to do with the whole concept of ascension? Think about it in the past 10, 15 years, how the spiritual communities have massively grown.
Right.
And if you look at the authentic teachings underneath, the mainstream of it, the underneath the root teachings is oneness and love.
All of them.
Yes. So, I mean, what goes back to the conversation we was having about how that relates to the concept of ascension and how that helps each being evolve and God consciousness as well. So it's a mirror effect that's happening, that's taking place. So as these new souls are coming in, they're already past a certain stage or elevated in that.
Right. Exactly. And that's why I say I used to think that it was such a disservice that was done to everybody that they got this programming and conditioning. But if indeed the whole point is evolution, which I'm begin to suspect that is what it is, the evolution or expansion of consciousness, then it would have to be that we have that's what it takes to that's part of it. In other words, for me, I see it. And I could be completely wrong about that, but I do feel like that's a part of it. That impetus for that, like you said, that the evolution of it for the expansion of that God frequency to experience that sort of programming and conditioning, and then to extract what because there's an awful lot of uh, expansion in that,
Mm-hmm.
um, no matter how you slice it,
Yeah.
and all of that experience
Yeah.
feels like.
I was thinking about like what what is beyond oneness, like, you know, fragmented to experience and to evolve. Like, let's say, what's the scenario? Let's say 3,000 years from now, there's a birth of beings that are so elevated that they are operating in this realm as just straight up oneness beings, God frequency. And this planet is what some people would say is 5D. And, it's so lovely and everything is, you know what I'm picturing here, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so ultimately that would lead to um a returning of consciousness, all fragments. What's after that? Because I just feel that energy so alive when I'm picturing this. Like, what is after unity? What is after oneness? Like, it did all these, billions of years to fragment and experience all these different lives and all these different experiences, and then finally years, and then it's oneness. And the answer that came was nothingness, because from oneness is nothingness, or from nothingness is oneness. But is it like, this is just my mind pretty much like imagining what that could potentially be, you know?
Well,
I
see
don't
now
have the answer
that's
to that.
you.
That's not why I'm bringing it forward, but
Well, right, I got you. Well, see, for some reason, as you were bringing that forward, I was shown nothingness, oneness, duality, which is what we are in now, right? And what I have termed triality being perhaps what we're moving into, and that is the ability to know that we are all one and singular all at the same time. And because honestly, we don't, that's a suspicion I have that that is what is going on here. But I don't know that. I
yeah.
suspect that it is so. But I
Hold
don't. Okay,
on. It's,
sure. It's a suspicion that I have, but I don't know that for an absolute fact. And it feels almost like and it may not be the same trajectory that everyone is even interested in discovering for themselves, right? Because I think there's room for a myriad, just all sorts of different kinds and ways of experiencing things, consciousness as a whole. So I don't know if that made any sense to you at all or not, but
I didn't get to hear it. Quinley was calling me from the neighbor's
oh, I
kids.
gotcha. Well, what I was saying was that you prompted this actually by saying what you said. I was shown in my mind's eye that from the nothingness, then the oneness. And what we are experiencing here is said to be duality, good or evil, dark or light. And I kind of feel as though we're moving into a triality where we can see that it is not an either or, it's an and,
Mm,
right? So that would be what I have termed a triality, so to speak, where we start to realize and live and experience. These are just a suspicion I have,
yeah.
but if that is the next iteration of the God source frequency, to know that it is oneness and separation all at the same time. That's just my suspicion. Nobody really knows for certain, right? But what if that is the next step in that consciousness evolution? And everything we learn about ourselves, about each other, about the oneness, about what is, because there's still a lot of frontier there, as far as I'm concerned, is for to experiment and play and learn about self and other as singular all at the same time. In that, from this seat, this perspective, now there may be beings out there that have already achieved that. I don't know. I've not been in contact with any that I'm aware of. But like I said, when you said that, that's what I was shown. Again, it could be because that's what I have felt the possibility of realizing the multidimensionality of the beings that we actually are on some level.
Yeah.
And how to play in that realm safely and happily, where we're not destroying each other or the planet upon which we live and all of that. Because gosh knows we haven't done any of that that I'm aware of. And golly gee willigers, I would sure like the opportunity to explore that. You know, even if one eensy beensy bit of that book, A Soul's Journey, that we did in book study and that I recorded and put on the channels. If any part of that is so, because that's what that man experienced, according to him, uh, then that kind of went right along with what I'm thinking here. That's what it looks as though that's what he is explaining that we are doing. It showed the evolution of consciousness with living, you know, and moving, because the way it was explained in that book is that just what you were saying, it's informing the one, the God frequency, going out and having all these experiences and it informs and helps the God frequency to evolve and to.
Yeah. I look at it as it is with like anything else, it's like an energy exchange. Like that's what we call downloads. You're receiving information and you're giving
Mhm.
information.
Yeah,
It's a light exchange.
right,
But it's more like in here.
right. No, that's so right. Wow, I love this. Thank you so much for contacting me today, and for us having this. This is what I mean when I say to folks, let's get together and have conscious conversations, open-ended suppositions, what we feel, what we think, and be open. See, that's just it. You got to be open. You got to
Yeah.
be open to, for me, it's all experimentation and what if, and because as far as I can tell, nobody has all the answers.
Yep.
And anybody who thinks that their way is the way or the only way, okay, you're fully
Yeah.
well, to have that, but I don't have that certainty at the moment, and I can only go with what I feel.
Right.
I'm open to hearing it all. And
Yep.
so I want to invite everybody again. Comment. What do you think? What do you feel? How are you what are your ideas about the questions that we've raised here? And share this around this video with your friends, with others that have been asking maybe these same sorts of questions, or even others that think they've figured it out, because hey, that's okay. I don't mind if you think you got all the answers. There's no sweat off of me. As somebody who used to think they had all the answers and is very clear about the fact that, oh no, she didn't. I feel you. But I'd love to hear from some folks. And if you want to participate in conversations like this, conscious conversation central at gmail.com. That's where, you just hit me up, let us know if you got a topic you want to have a conversation about. Know that we're open and, would love to have conversations. That, to me, that's the only way we're going to flesh it out anyway.
Yeah.
To have, and quite frankly, um, it's sorely missing in adulthood anymore. Being able to have conversations, open-ended conversations, um, where nobody really has any answers. We're just having a conversation and being okay with that.
Yeah.
You know,
I
I
think, that it's the ego thing. Most people want to be right and they stick to their rigid truth, not realizing that that too can evolve.
well, yes, absolutely. And I mean, I as one who really used to think that they were right about everything, because hey, that's me. That was me. I get where you're coming from, but I got to be honest with you. Ever since I allowed that to go, my life has been so much more rich and full. Uh, just allowing conversations to take place. I still think and feel certain kinds of ways, but I can't evolve if I don't open my thought processes and allow new concepts to be presented. That's really
Yep.
the only way, in my view, to grow past where I am in this moment.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll be back in touch with everybody once we put together a meditation. We'll do go to newlightstreaming.love, the website. Take a look at Krystle's been writing again, and so she's got her blog up there for you to
Come get
see.
a reading.
Yes, and come get a reading from Krystle. You've got that sliding scale going for folks so that no one is left out of that. I love that you're doing that. And for right now, where while you're still, forced out of your job due to your medical situation, be a big help to Krystle. She's got lots of things for you to check out. Just click the Journey Into It tab on the website. When you go to newlightstreaming.love, click Journey Into It, and you'll see all that she has available there, including some really beautiful works of art and some channeled things that you have up for sale. And will do. I was going to say, did you? I can't remember. I haven't been back to the site yet to see. Are you still doing the digital light language art?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I know you've got the T-shirts too. So there's a place where you can click, and it will take you to Bonfire, where all her light language art is available on a whole range of clothing, hoodies,
And just
T-shirts.
art in general. It's not all that language now. I've got some just regular, cute little sayings on
Oh,
there.
I
So
love that. Okay, so it's not all light language over there.
yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, all of the art that you've done has been top notch. If you ask me, I love it. I always wear my piece that you made for me. So it's
Oh
my
yeah, that's another really cool thing you guys could do if you just want to connect with your soul's message. It's on. You don't have to click on anything else other than the Journey Into It page. If you scroll past the reading and stuff, you're going to see all these numbered 1 through what 22, I think maybe.
I know.
And
Yeah,
you
I was gonna
pick,
see. I was gonna pull it out here to show everybody.
yeah,
Um,
you pick the piece of art that you are drawn to, and you get a soul's message with it. It's $8.88.
there's
You just
all
email
these
me
to
what
choose
number you
from.
actually pick, and then I get it
Yep,
sent out to you.
all these to choose from, and you just go and take a look at them, and whichever one your soul prompts you, there's a channeled message that came with it, and yeah, just follow the down the page there and see what all Krystle has to offer there. Especially the time of year it's getting ready to be here. Folks are going to be thinking about gifting family members and friends. And, if I'll tell you, here's a really interesting thing for me. I I purchased one of not you don't have them available anymore, but she was putting these on keychains and pendants at one time. And I purchased one for my son. And he's really not into all of what I'm into. Let's just put it that way. Um, but I did tell him that it was the empath shield because I highly feel he's an empath. And do you know that he felt some kind of way? He loved that, but he could not wear jewelry on his job. And he all on his own, Krystle, did I tell you this? All on his own went to the website and purchased the t-shirt
Yeah,
of the
I
empath
remember that.
shield. Yeah. So if you have, a family member that you want to gift something to, They don't got to know that it's light language if you don't want to tell them. It's just a cool design that you found.
Yeah.
And you give it to them. And now I did tell him because it was a piece of jewelry, but the fact that he felt a certain something and decided to purchase the t-shirt for himself, that spoke a lot to me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Until we are together again.
It'll
Mwah.
be soon.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.